What is up everybody, Hoang here, and today I have for you all a special treat in the form of the first BT14 deck profile. We are showcasing BloomLord with a super spicy tech. This video, we're going to go over the core cards of the deck. We're going to go over a little bit of a how the combo works tutorial sort of thing. And yeah, I really hope you are looking forward to it and hope you enjoy the video. Huge shout outs to LumChop, who not only is the artist behind all of the amazing thumbnails that you find on the Hoang channel, but is also helping out with this video with all the editing and everything. So amazing work. Huge shout out to him. And be sure to check out not only his Twitter page, but also his shop. I'll leave it all in the description down below. But without further ado, let's get started. To kick things off, we're going to talk about the new combo that hasn't even made its appearance yet in Japan yet. And that is because Japan didn't have this combo exist during their BT14 format. And I'm talking about the combo that starts with Ukkomon. Ukkomon is a brand new promo white rookie that comes out in the movie pack / the demo deck that you can get pretty easily, right? It's either through the BT14 sneak event or it's through seeing the movie in theaters. Ukkomon ability is whenever a Digimon is moved from your raising area, you can immediately hatch a new egg, and whenever you move something from your raising area, you do gain 1 memory. Ukkomon does see itself move from the raising area, so that will automatically hatch a new egg as well as gain you that memory, right? So Ukkomon is pretty great in that sense. So, with context to Ukkomon, I was thinking about this for I would say a week. I gave it 30 minutes every single day, and I was like, what deck is going to break Ukkomon? And one day at work, I thought about it. I had this brain blast, and I was like, wait, Mimi exists in this game. Okay. So with Mimi, what you could do is you can tap the Mimi, promote the Ukkomon, and then the Ukkomon will immediately trigger its effect, thus hatching a new egg, gaining you a memory as well. So you can use it as a pseudo extender, and then if you have a second Mimi, you can promote whatever you evo in the back off the Ukkomon effect. But then we took it an extra step further, because if you realize Ukkomon is an ancient fairy. Being an ancient fairy does mean it has inherent synergy with the BloomLord support, because everything except for BT10 Palmon says fairy in one of its traits, meaning Ukkomon counts for multiple effects. So number 1, Sunflowmon and Ayatarmon can both play Ukkomon out for its special effect, so you can play out Ukkomon for 0 and then extend off of that. You can use the Ukkomon to count towards the BloomLord and or Hydra count, so if you need some extra fodder, that works as well. And Ukkomon is searchable by Lalamon, because Lalamon says with fairy in one of its traits, whereas Palmon says specifically fairy, right? So Palmon can't grab it, unfortunately, but Lalamon will be able to. So with this in mind, there's a lot of different things you can do with the Ukkomon. One of them is you can Evo Ayatar or promote Ayatarmon effect, play out the Ukkomon, and then using the Mimi, you can hatch a new egg and then Evo and then use a second Mimi to promote that up, and then you can immediately use the Ukkomon effect to generate another egg and back. So that's with a double Mimi setup. There's a lot of different other ways you can do this setup as well. If you have Ayatar plus nothing, empty egg and back, Evo Ukkomon and back, promote with Mimi, and then rinse and repeat. With double Mimi, double Ukko, there's a lot that you can do, right? Because Mimi promote Ukko hatch a new egg, Evo Ukko, and then Mimi promote the second Ukko, which then hatches another egg. In testing, I was able to cycle through all 5 Digitama by turn 3 using Ukkomon, and it's really, really strong in that sense because it accelerates your game plan very significantly. You can also use this for your Digisorption fodder, so for your Blasso, your Argo, your Cherry, even Hidden Potential Discovered, right? You can use the Ukkomon after you've extended with it to keep pressing forward. So using Ukkomon, I think it's going to be a really great addition to BloomLord because it just fits well with its trait. It contributes towards really just everything, and it's going to accelerate you 1 to 2 turns faster. So yeah, without further ado, let's jump right into the deck profile. Now that we've gone ahead and explained how the Ukko-Mimi combo works, we're going to go straight into the actual deck profile itself. So first and foremost, your Digitama, right? Your Digitama are one of the most important pieces to this. And so because we're cycling through our eggs so quickly, we do have to play 5 Digitama. We do play the 4 Ukkomon and the 1 Argomon. Ukkomon is your best source of draw inherent in the BloomLord style of deck because it doesn't rely on your opponent to draw cards like Gummymon would. Ukkomon being very self-sufficient means that we can keep cycling for our pieces very easily. And then Argomon being your 1 of 5th egg because all the other eggs are kind of eh. And Argomon's probably the second best egg that we can use that isn't too reliant on our opponent to play the game. Moving on into our level 3 ratios, we do play the 4 Lolamon. Now, Lolamon, search-wise, is inferior to Palmon. However, Lolamon does have the additional benefit of being able to search for the Ukkomon. Lolamon also has the additional benefit of reducing the cost of evolution with your Green Tamer, aka your Mimi. So for a weaker search, you are able to grab the Ukkomon to facilitate the combo, and you also contribute towards some cost reduction efficiency. So Lolamon is still a pretty good card, and if you still run into consistency issues, you could replace the Lolamon with that BT10 Palmon. I think that is totally acceptable. Next, we do have 2 Terriermon. Terriermon, as you know, is not a plant, vegetation, or fairy, so it doesn't contribute towards any of your effects, nor can you play it for free. But Terriermon is pretty great this format because it's good in the mirror, it's really good into Melga, and it's pretty good into Luga because all 3 of those decks rely on memory gain via effect. So Terriermon is a pretty helpful floodgate in dealing with any of those decks, but because it is not able to be free played off of your effects, you do want to have other vegetation, plants, and whatnot as viable targets. Now coming up, we do have 3 of the BT9 Pomumon. BT9 Pomumon is neither player can summon Digimon by effects. Yes, this is a double-edged sword because this also prevents you from using your own effects, but it's very easy to play around this. Whether you evolve over the Pomumon, you can swing the Pomumon into security and have it die, or you can just really it's just those 2 things. But those are 2 really easy solutions that you can do. And this Pomumon is very relevant because it's great in the mirror, first and foremost, shutting down your opponent's BloomLord plays, but it's also really fantastic into Lugamon. Lugamon's only way to out the Pomumon is either the Chimeramon or it's the Hell Luga. Most won't be running Deathclaw or anything because it just doesn't synergize very well with the deck. So forcing them to use their level 5 to get rid of this Pomumon is a really great way to hinder their game plans because A, Chimeramon's not searchable, and B, if they have to waste the turn using the Helluga, you're probably in a really great position. Now we do have 3 of the EX3 Pomumon. This Pomumon is, when this card is suspended, suspend one of your opponent's Digimon. So this has fantastic synergy with Hydra. You can use it in combination with BloomLord if you want to tap some of your opponent's Digimon. This in general is just a really fantastic mon to use as fodder. Having this to synergize with your Hydramon proc, I feel like will come up quite a bit, and in general, it makes it so you don't have to rely on things like the Hydramon's effect to be your sole source of tapping out your opponent. Now we can also use this to combo with our BloomLord. We do play the 2 Ukkomon. I played this at 3 originally when I was testing it because I wanted to see this as much as possible to feel out the combo, but then I kind of drew the Ukkomon a little too much, and after you run out of Digi-Eggs, Ukkomon it just loses all of its value. So we were playing only 2 Ukkomon because once you see the first Ukkomon, you should be able to accelerate your game plan enough to where you'll find the second one pretty soon. And because I'm running out of eggs by turn 3, turn 4, I don't feel the need for a 3rd Ukkomon, but I feel like at 2, you see it well enough. Going into our 4 count, we do play 1 Red Vegiemon. The Red Vegiemon, I feel like, as 1 of, is still pretty strong because A, it is a target that is a level 4 that you can hard slam, unlike the other level 4s because those are all 4 cost. So slamming for 3 does mean that you can evolve into your Blasso or your Argo or even your Cherry, right? For effectively 4 cost, which is the same cost that would have been for slamming any of your other 4s. That can lead into an easy Hydramon play. You can use that to set up an Ayatarmon play on the following turn, and in general, 1 cost evolution is just kind of nice to have. Having that, the access to that 1 cost evolution, sometimes when you do need it to choke your opponent and whatnot, is pretty nice. So I would say run at least the 1. You could cut it for a BT13 Sunflow, I think that's fine, but I think the 1 Red Veggie is really nice. Now we do play 4 BT10 Sunflow. BT10 Sunflow being able to spawn bodies alongside the Iatarmon is really helpful. It's an additional card draw as well via its inheritable source skill, and because it can play out the Ukkomon, you can start to ramp very quickly. This Sunflow I would say you want as a 4 of, just because you want to steamroll your opponent as much as possible, and using it to play out floodgates into this format with Luca and Bloom running around can be very helpful. And it also helps you draw into your Quartz Wand, which is going to be an integral part in a lot of your other matchups. When you play 2 BT13 Sunflow, BT13 Sunflow is a really powerful card, it having the ability to tap itself in order to reduce the cost of evolution to a fairy by 2, and then it also reduces the cost of evolution via its own effect. But the thing about BT13 Sunflow that a lot of people don't realize is that it doesn't stack with your training boost. So you can't use both Sunflow and training in the same evolution because once you use either of their effects, you must immediately evolve. So because of that, there is some mistiming there and it feels kind of awkward. So because of that reason, I only play 2 of this, and you also can only use this really to go into Lilymon or the BloomLord. You can't use this to go into Hydramon. So depending on your hand state, this could just become a vanilla with a nice inheritable. And then our last level 4 we're playing 3 of the new Togemon. This Togemon is whenever you would play a Tamer, you can tap this Digimon, and if you do, you can reduce the cost of the Tamer by 3. Also has the inheritable to reduce the evolution cost of your Digimon by 1 if you have a green Tamer. So this Togemon is really impactful because you can play it off the Iatarmon for free, and then you can play a Mimi for 1 immediately, and then use that Mimi to promote an Ukko or hatch an Ukko, or really just do any shenanigans along that vein. Togemon being a core part of accelerating your game plan, I feel was pretty good, but of course it does have some diminishing returns. And it also requires you to have a Tamer in your hand to get extra value. If Togemon without Tamer is just a on average a worse BT13 Sunflow, and after you've run out of Tamers in the deck, Togemon is of course a worse Sunflow. So do keep that in mind. That's why we're not maxing out on this card. You'll see it often enough thanks to our new consistency tools. Going into our level 5s, we do still play the 1 of Cherrymon. Cherrymon is great because it is a Digisolution card, so we can evolve into it for 1, unlike our Iatarmon or our Lilymon. The ability to redirect attacks into one of our tapped Digimon is still a valuable tool, because that does mean we can use that to block out one of Fenluga's swings for 2. We can use that to hardwall decks like the Blue Flare, like Blue Hybrid, and as a defensive tool, it just feels really great. Going into our next level 5, we do play 4 Iatarmon. Iatarmon is of course your bread and butter. If you don't see Iatarmon, then your deck feels basically boneless. I see a lot of Japanese lists only play 3 Iatarmon. I do think this is incorrect, as Iatarmon is such a pivotal card to your entire game plan. I wouldn't play any less than 4. Iatarmon being able to tap any of your green Digimon to spit out a vegetation, fairy, or plant is way too impactful because it spits out your 4s and your 3s. It can be used as a way to play out the Lalamon to search out more cards like your Bloom or Hydra. You can use this to continue to extend off of BT10 Sunflow and really just everything. And with the ESS to gain back memory when you tap something on your board, you can further use this to reduce the cost of your evolutions. Iatarmon, like I said, if you don't see Iatarmon, the game gets progressively harder, or significantly harder rather, but it feels so good when you see it, so I really don't see a reason to not play 4. And then we do play 2 Lilymon Ace. Lilymon Ace is one of the new cards that we did receive in BT14, and the main purpose I find Lilymon Ace having isn't for its Ace effect, right? It's not for the Blast Evolution, but rather it's for the ability to get rid of floodgates. Lilymon Ace having the ability to bot deck a Pomumon or bot deck a Terriermon means that it's much harder for your opponent to just wall you out of the game completely. Lilymon Ace is also able to split the suspend as well as the bot deck of 5,000 or lower suspended Digimon, so you can tap something and also bot deck something, so there's a lot of room to play with using the Lilymon's ability as well. It is nice to sometimes blast evolution into it, so like if you have a level 4 that's tapped out and they swing into it thinking it's a safe swing, and then you go Lily Ace for 8,000, it is a pretty good bait. It goes really great alongside a Hydramon on your board, or after you've done your BloomLord combo. Just in general, I used to undervalue this card. I used to only run it as a 1-up, but then I saw its value as a floodgate remover, so I've bumped it up to 2. Now we do play the 1 of Argomon. Argomon is not a searchable Digimon by your plant effects. It is not something that you can use to just combo with that. And it doesn't get searched by Lalamon because I believe it is a mutant. But Argomon still has a lot of value in the form of it being a Digisorption for 0, so you can evolve into it for 0, and the ESS on it is really, really helpful because you can use it to play out Floodgates like the Terrier, like the Pomu, and if you have 2 stacks, one of which is including the Argo, you can clear out your opponent's entire security, put them to 0. Right, so Argomon has a lot of use that I still think is a lot of people, they want to cut it because it's not a plant and it lacks that synergy. But I do think having that extra Digisorption target, especially with the Ukkomon engine, is really helpful. And then we do play the one of Blosso, of course. Yes, Blossomon is limited to 1, and yes, Blossomon is still an insane card. Because Blossomon being able to also evolve for 0, but is a vegetation/plant, so it is searchable, and you can use that for all your shenanigans, is still really fantastic. So it's basically an archetypal Argomon, if you will. And then going into our level 6s, we do play the 3 Bloomlord. Bloomlord is, of course, your main boss card, being able to put out a lot of pressure in combination with Sunflowmon. It's a 2-cost evolution that then can gain back the 2 memories, so really it's a 0-cost evolution. Swinging for multiple checks at high counts of DP. Bloomlord is how you're putting your opponent on the clock. Bloomlord, in combination with the EX3 Pomumon, will be able to get rid of a lot of different stacks. In general, using the Ukkomon to accelerate your game plan, go into the Bloomlord a turn faster than your opponent may expect is pretty great, because remember, Ukkomon does give you that additional memory, so that 1 memory could be what it takes to extend your turn. Now, a lot of lists, as you'll see, they only play Bloomlord. They play Bloomlord at 4, right? Because Bloomlord is your main boss card. But I've found, because of our additional consistency boosters, right? Because we did get the training. We have training plus green memory boost. We have our searchers. We have Ukkomon drawing us additional cards as well. I found at 3 Bloomlord, we will see it often enough. Because also, we do have to make room for our Hydramon. Hydramon is such a powerful boss card in this upcoming format because it has the ability to remove bodies off the board without having to interact via combat. Not only that, but it also is a deterrent from your opponent to swing at you because you can take memory away from them during both players' turns. So leveraging both the Bloomlord as your offensive and Hydra as your defensive play, this deck really has a lot of toolbox variety towards it. And what normally would be the 4th copy of Bloomlord was then reallocated instead to the 3rd copy of Quartzmon, because we do play 3 Quartz. And Quartzmon is such a powerful card. It is the win con into so many decks in the format. Most decks in the game aren't able to safely clear out the Quartzmon, or at least not very easily. Quartzmon shuts off most blue decks. It shuts off decks like Ulforce. It can shut off decks like Luga. Quartz is kind of just the general safe win button, right? If you swing out for Bloom for 2 checks, set out a board, and then Quartz on top of your opponent, there's not a lot that they can really do. Using the Ukkomon, that does also mean that you can set up in back a lot easier, so that way you can establish 2nd stack to move out on the following turn after you go into the Quartz, which is a really fantastic win con. Because Quartz is so pivotal, and because it is not a plant, vegetation, or fairy, meaning it is not searchable by Lalamon, I do feel that playing it at a 3 count is really necessary in this format. And then going into our option counts, we do play the 1 Hidden Potential Discovered. This card is absolutely broken. There's no reason not to play this. Hydra for 0, Bloom for plus memory, and Quartzmon for 1 is absolutely bonkers. This card really should be at 0, but it's not, so until it is, we're just going to continue to abuse it. We play 2 green memory boost. And so with the introduction of training boost, you may be wondering, well, why don't we just play 4 training boosts? And because the reason why we don't do that is because, number 1, like we said before, training boost does not stack with BT14 Sunflow. So sometimes you just won't have enough memory to retain turn. And so green memory boost helps in that sense. Number 2, green memory boost can be used to contribute towards hard playing bodies. Like we can hard play a Floodgate Pomu, we can hard play the red veggie. We just hard playing bodies to contribute towards our vegetation plant fairy count. It can be really helpful. And lastly, but not least, it is a dig 4 versus a dig 2. Being a dig 4 means that you're going to be able to find your pieces much more consistently, which is really important in a deck like Bloomlord. And if you're in the meta, if people are not playing memory blockers as much because they're playing evolution reduction blockers, green memory boost doesn't get around that. And then we do play our 2 agility training. Agility training is of course such a powerful card. It is one of our main ways of finding Mimi as well because it searches for any green card. And using it, you can really combine this with all of your other cost reduction effects, because you can use the training with the inheritable source skills to reduce cost by 1 as well. So it is a reduced by 3 going into a lot of your plays. And it's a 2 cost, so it's a really great card to use to choke out your opponent. And then we do play the 3 Mimi. Mimi is of course the bread and butter of this deck. Mimi is a card you want to see a lot, but after you run out of Digi-Eggs, Mimi then just becomes a vanilla memory tamer, so that's why we're not playing before, because you eventually hit a point of diminishing returns. And with the Mimi, you want to see it early enough to start the Ukkomon engine as soon as possible, so I think 3 is a really good number. Arguably, you do play 2, but I think 3 is a good number to start with, and then maybe you can work your way down from there. So that is my BloomLord deck profile, and I know a lot of people may ask, okay, what about cards like the BT14 Mimi, like BT14 Palmon? Yes, those cards are really good, but I think in pursuit of trying to fit the Ukkomon engine, we do have to make some adjustments, right? Because the Ukkomon kind of replaces what the BT14 Mimi is trying to do in my, at least in my head, right? So the BT14 Mimi, yes, it is a consistency booster. Yes, it's giving you back that memory. But BT14 Mimi is on average, it's going to be the same cost as the Ukkomon. But Ukkomon ramps you by an entire stack, potentially, and Mimi is just reducing your evolution, but you also gain the memory off the Ukkomon. So in my head, how I view it is the 1 memory you gain off of Ukkomon on the play turn is also similarly the 1 memory you're getting from the BT14 Mimi. So they fill very similar niches, and BT14 Mimi can only be played for free by Togemon, but Ukkomon can be played for free by both BT10 Sunflow as well as Ayatarmon. Ukkomon also contributes towards evolving over your raising area if you need to cycle, and it contributes towards your Hydro Bloom, etc. counts. So that's why I think Ukkomon is a great replacement for the Mimi. Of course, if you need raw consistency, the Mimi is good. I'm not saying the Ukkomon is the definitive way to play this deck. I think there's a lot of different avenues you can navigate to do this. Mimi is great. I think both are valid, just player preference. And with BT14 Palmon, I have gripes with BT14 Palmon, frankly. I think it's a good card, and especially with the Ukkomon engine, it could be very, very good, actually, because then you can use it to Ukko to hatch the new egg, evo the BT14 Palmon, and then promote out with the Mimi. I think that's really strong. But the gripe that I have found myself with BT14 Palmon is if my opponent doesn't have anything on their board, it becomes basically just a worse Lullaby. And so as in testing, I found that situation came up a little too much because a lot of opponents, what they'll end up doing is they'll wait for BloomLord to try and make a play first, because a lot of BloomLord players, they'll kind of just go ham onto the board, and then afterward they'll come out of raising Vent and then break your board. And if you say, okay, what if I just stack like a bunch of boosts and whatnot in BloomLord and wait for them to make the play instead? Well, that's a little bit difficult as well, because I think in BT14, a lot of decks can try and, when they move out, they can try and threaten an OTK instead, right? Lugomon, Ulforce, these are both really great examples of decks that can just put pressure immediately onto the board when they come out. And so I don't think you want to give them that much breathing room either. So that is the reason why I'm not a personal fan of BT14 BT14 Palmon rather. Instead of that, I would rather just play Floodgates to just lock my opponent out of the game. I do think BT14 Palmon is still a good card, and I do think you could, of course, find room for it, but that is something that is, of course, player preference. And the last card I would say you could consider is going to be the BT8 Chimeramon, because BT8 Chimeramon is a really fantastic extender. When you have double 4s after your BloomLord swing, you can go into Chimeramon, make another BloomLord stack, and continue to extend. Chimeramon is enabling you to potentially OTK your opponent as well. But my gripes with the Chimeramon is it's not searchable, period, right? Ukkomon is at least searchable by Lullaby. in Chimeramon. And Ukkomon you can also use to cycle. Ukkomon is a cheap hard slam. Ukkomon is just easier to play. It's not so much of a brick as Chimeramon can be. If you're not making for your huge combo turn, Chimeramon loses a lot of value, I would say. And you can't use training boost to go into the Chimeramon as well. So that's also a bit of an issue. So do keep that in mind when you are deck building. Like I said, and repeating it, Chimera, BT14 Palmon, and BT14 Mimi are good cards. If you want to fit them, I won't say they are bad. I just think it really depends on the player's preference, the style, and yeah, how you want to incorporate the Ukkomon engine. So, reviewing the pros and cons of the Ukko engine. Ukko engine, it accelerates your play by 1 or 2 turns potentially with Mimi. The con, you are playing a card that could be easily become the BT14 Mimi that is going to be a much bigger consistency booster. So I think those are the pros and cons, I would say, for the Ukko engine. But yeah, I would say test this out. This is something that did not exist in Japan's BT14 format. This is something exclusively for the English BT14 format. And I think there is a lot of room for growth with the Bloomlord deck. So thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Once again, shout out to Lumchop, who again is an amazing artist, an amazing editor, and I don't know what I would do without you. So thank you. Please check him out. All of his info will be in the description down below. And thank you all so much. Peace.